All right, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we are going to look at a 22 Ruby Life Pools Fortified, Sanguine, and Volcanic. I think this is going to be a great week to get your 22. I think the Fortified version is quite a bit easier than the Tyrannical version. And off the top here, I want to talk about a couple of things, starting with the add-on called Edit Mode Expanded. So I think this is going to be the big replacement for Move Anything in Dragonflight. And I think Blizzard was on the right track with their interface here, but it just doesn't allow editing of enough frames. And what I'm getting at is we need to be able to see our Mindbender icon better, which is usually hooked to our player frame. That is just not in the best place to see it. I do think directly under your 3D model is a better place to see your Mindbender icon. And I reached out to the author, Tilo, and asked him if he would incorporate this. And he did within 10 minutes. So it's called a totem frame, unrelated to shaman totems. That's just what it's called. And I think putting that right underneath your player model is going to be the best thing. And the reason we want to do this is because to the best of my knowledge, there's no in-game API that monitors or tracks that timer. So in other words, there is not going to be a WeakR that does it more accurately than the native interface. So I like to bring that icon, which is usually hooked to my player, and bring it front and center. I just think that's the best way to do it. And then the next thing I want to talk about here quickly are talents. So I am going Vampiric Embrace mainly because it eases my rotation. But I don't think it's as necessary on Fortified weeks. I find it often goes to waste. But I'm still running it. Maybe you could switch over to the Leech instead. I think that'd be fine. But for Ruby Life Pools, we do not need Mass Dispel, so you can gain a point there. I pretty much have put that right to my 10% DR with Fade. And then a lot of people have asked, why are you running Holy Nova? I don't see you use it. Well, I do use it some. I think every pull's a little bit different. But the main reason I keep Holy Nova is because I run the Feather. And you know, you can let me know your opinions if you think I'm off base here, but the more mobs you can touch, the higher the chances your feather is going to be out in the field. So that's why I run the Holy Nova. And then my discipline side is all the same. I do not opt for defensive points. Sue me. I think running for offense is just about the same as running for defense. So yeah, I'd just rather go that route. And then the next thing I want to talk about is Shadow Covenant. I've had a few behind the scenes changes here. So I do activate my Shadow Covenant with my mouse wheel. I think that's a really nice little Easter egg, if you will, within the mouse. Is in one scroll of the wheel, you're getting multiple activations. So you can really spam for a spell that way. So behind the Mindbender, you have this dead global, where you need to be spamming to get into your Shadow Covenant as quickly as possible. So I do put that on the mouse wheel. If anyone's wondering, I have Shift-Alt, mouse wheel backwards. And then one really nice way that can integrate with Click and integrate with your interface. So the add-on called Click, I think every disc should use it. But for example, if my mouse is hovering just in open air, and I activate my Shadow Covenant keybind, it defaults to my @player macro, or if I do that same keybind on a frame, it'll send it there. And the reason I've done that is after a couple of weeks of playing with it, I noticed that I didn't really want to bother myself with who I'm Shadow Covenanting. I just wanted to get into the window, and an @player macro is a surefire way just to consider that an activation. So I don't have to worry if they're in range, out of LOS. I don't have to position my mouse on anyone to direct it that way. I just hit the keybind and it goes in Shadow Covenant, but I still have the option to send it directionally. And then that blue shift right there is a weak aura. A lot of people have asked about it. It's on my Wago page, but yeah, it's just a little simple weak aura. And then another thing I wanted to address, a lot of people have been asking, and I think it is a little bit confusing. I think KUI could do it better, but a lot of people are saying, I can't seem to import your code. I don't see a place to put it. So the confusing part is KUI Nameplates Core is one add-on, and the KUI Target Helper is another. They work together, they're sister add-ons, same author, but they're not a part of the same download. And then the Target Helper is where the code goes. It does not apply to the core add-on. I think it should, but the core add-on is really easy to set up. It's all just preferential like size and color and things like that. So the Target Helper is where you will input the code. It is a separate add-on. That's just how it is. I'm sorry about it. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is I opened up a Patreon. So I'm pretty excited to see how this does. And I would just like to preface saying that this was never my intention with this channel. My channel has always just been an extension of my hobby. I just like to share what I know, share things I'm passionate about. But over the last year doing this, I'm committing more and more time. And I'm now spending US dollars out of my pocket to upgrade my equipment. So this was never my intention to start a Patreon, but after the first person asked for it, I said, you know what, I'll wait and see if anyone else asks about it. So over the last year now, I've had many people ask me, where's my Patreon? They would like to contribute to my channel. So now we have one. So if you like my channel, like to support my time in any way, we have a couple subscription options over there. I've never done a Patreon, so give me a minute to figure it out and build it out. But I will never paywall my content. It's just an option if you'd like to support me as the person and support my time creating these videos for you guys. I'd really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, so here we go. Ruby Life Pools 22. This was a fairly good run overall, but don't hold your breath for me on this first pull. Thinking about PI targets, all three of these DPS are top of the list for who benefits from PI most. So something you might want to consider is item level, experience. Yeah. So that was, I mean, it just feels so bad to die before you even cast a spell. And if anyone watches my material, I love Fade. I'm no stranger to Fade. And I was meaning to Fade there. Did not Fade soon enough. So here we go. We're fighting for IO at this point. So we just got to pick it up, keep on moving. I use my DPS potion. Yeah, and this first pull. Standing in 3 stacks of Sanguine. I almost walk in. It was just a little rough. But I was the only death. Not too much of a loss. However, my PI did fall off sync with the group. So that's one thing to consider. So before boss, you definitely want 2 rounds of PI. And yeah, so when we're talking about Mindbender and Shadow Covenant, we're aiming for this, I don't know what to call it, like this perfect ramp or this ideal ramp. We have minimums of spells we want to get, and that is 4 torment spells at least, and we definitely want 2 large Dark Reprimands. Also, we want to try and get a 5th torment, and you do that off sniping out execute ranges with Shadow or Death. So with KUI nameplates, it's really easy to see execute range. I have it shift to white, from red to white. And yeah, sniping those execute ranges, that's the only way you can do better. So in theory, this is where our second PI would go, but I'm off sync with the group by about 20 seconds. In these high keys, 2-minute cooldowns and PIs are full send. You don't hold, you need as many presses as possible. And for groups like this, I do like working in my Divine Star at the top before anyone dies. It's a very strong spell, so I put it third in my sequence. So I Schism, Mind Blast, Penance. You have to do those two first, Mind Blast and Penance, and then the Divine Star. I was playing with it on a dummy. I think it's good for anyone to take Divine Star to a dummy because its parameters aren't quite clear. Like there's a little bit of lenience to the left and right as kind of a bigger effect than it looks like. But I think it acts as similar to a smite on both ends. So, yeah. So, PI should have been played last pull if I wasn't off sequence, but I opt to play it here since this guy is fortified. The way I look at that is it's just a big time sink. He is kind of dangerous, not too hard to dodge his mechanics. The biggest play he is for the key is a time sink. So I PI our Warlock, who is queuing up his ramp also. And for this guy, we should get 2 Mindbender rounds. And then, so that second Dark Reprimand is huge damage and huge HPS. All you have to do to ensure you get 2 procs in your window is ramp your Harsh Discipline to a 3 stack. So Harsh Discipline a 3 stack. Mindbender first, Shadow Covenant second, Schism, Mind Blast, Penance.
5, 4.
And at that point you can re-atone, at that point you can re-dot, things like that. But you have to get that first Mind Blast rolling and the first Penance rolling. Also, I'm trying to never cast Penance unless it's a proc. I'm trying not to cast Shield unless it has a buff from 4-piece. And this guy is dead. All cooldowns available. But we do want to save our Mindbender for when the whelps come out. So on the front end, all we do is pump as much natural damage as possible. And for this first Chill Storm, it is the perfect time for Rapture. Rapture is much better for DPS and healers. Whenever I can, I avoid giving a global to the tank, as he's not going to need the Rapture as much. So here come the whelps. I have a 3 stack, ramping my atonements with single atonements. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism, Mind Blast, Penance, Divine Star. And when these whelps are out, you can snipe a 5th execute range, and I think I did that there. So PI just came up for us. A mid-pull PI is a little bit tricky, but we gotta work with it. So looking back on this now, I think that might have been a good place for Barrier. I will say I don't think Barrier is the most useful on this fight, but during that mechanic it actually would have been nice. So ramping my atonements again with single atonements. I have a dot out. Here goes our window. Schism, Mind Blast, Dark Reprimand, Divine Star early. And for this one, I worked in a Radiance in the middle. A lot of times you will need to refresh your atonements with a Radiance because your atonements will begin to fall off within your Shadow Covenant. Okay, I should have used a feather there to get that further away, but we have Rapture, we have a proc loaded, and again, Rapture yourself and the DPS. The tank does not need the shield as much as everyone else. And the boss is just about dead, so we don't need to hold Dark Reprimand for the next whelp phase. I go ahead and drop it just to pump one more round of DPS. And that could have been played better all round. I went a little greedy and paints up myself so I didn't have to move as much. I think a better play would have been to maybe Radiance early and just get through that with Atonements, but we're fine. Paints up is really valuable coming up when we play the dragon, but we actually go to the right first. And this, I think this must have been a bug because, yeah, my allies got thundered while in transport. I'm surprised that that happened. That's 10 or more seconds lost. That really sucks. But we do time this, so no need to hold your breath. And always in a moment like this, we have to wait on our allies. Regen. So in this pull coming up, we have the Fire Dance, my favorite spell in the game. Which it is something that your Fear Bomb can interrupt. So I have this red bar pulled up on my screen showing the cast, and that's kind of my cue to Fear Bomb. However, I assume the team has the first one at least, but they don't. So it's a miracle no one died there. But thankfully we were in Shadow Covenant, had a good recovery. But this time, the next time the Fire Dance comes up, I am ready with my Fear Bomb because I can't trust these hoes. And Fear Bomb that one. So it is kind of a weakness in your book as a priest. We don't have a traditional solid interrupt or kick spell, but we do have Fear Bomb, which works for a lot of things. It is a longer cooldown, but you can offer it at least once to pulls. So these guys are fortified. This is going to be the meat of the dungeon. We need cooldowns. So it looks like I wall for this first one. And my Shadow Covenant lined up, so I'm relying on that. Quick Radiance, yep. And in pulls like this, always a good idea to give your buffed 4-piece shield to yourself. So if anyone watches that back, we'll talk about coming up here the lack of awareness from the Death Knight, the rest of this key. He had a dot on him and walked right through Sanguine. So there's a big concept in WoW with area of effect. Grip that guy to safety out of midair, love it. So area of effects, they can be damage attacks or they can be heals, and you have to pay attention to both. So if your healer is a shaman, you have to stand in their rain. If your healer is a druid, you have to stand in their green circle. If your healer is a priest, you have to stand in their barrier. You just gotta know to look for those things and use them. Okay, so here goes PI. And for this first attack, you always want to aim for one quick dispel. And the first one we had Shadow Covenant cover all of us. And for this next one, I'm already scanning my buffs. All we have available to modify with is a barrier. And I think this play would be better in Discord, but I lay the barrier right on the Death Knight, and he walked out of the barrier. So if you watch my global tracker, I laid the barrier and then I paused. I hesitated because I was hoping he would walk back in the barrier before I dispelled. And even a little hesitation where I was waiting for him to get back in the barrier, it led to a death with the Warlock. So he thinks it was partially his bad for not using a health stone, but it was just a mix of things. I definitely think the Death Knight hurt the pull there. So one pull he walks in Sanguine, the next pull he walks out of barrier. So, and Rapture is a great spell to use here. I try and delay the Rapture until that single dot goes off, that bomb dot. And that's when I start my Rapture. trying to refresh the shield on the target. Okay, yeah, so I think I just body pulled that. I did watch this back. I think I body pulled that. We recover, but actually I about hit Wiggles. So I think my last Shadow Covenant was actually played a little bit early. Definitely should hold your Shadow Covenant for the Infernos. Thankfully no one died between that and the body pull. And there was a little bit of chaos and I missed my PI. I just cast it. Arguably, you could call that a late PI. I think we get good value out of it, but we could have had better value if it was played sooner. But maybe something to note, when I body pulled those guys, I couldn't really see the field because the damn trees were in my way. So possibly on these type pulls, pan your camera in slightly. Probably have to try that next time. But we had no deaths, it was a miracle. But always in a moment like this, glance at your available spells. Rapture is our only modifier, but we got the Shadow Covenant. So I think I opt for the Shadow Covenant first. 3 stack of Harsh Discipline. Ramping a full Atonement ramp.
5, 4, 3, 2.
I don't know what I do without grip. I'm so bad at that mechanic. Working a Radiance. And when it comes to the Radiance, which happens mid Shadow Covenant, the more you can delay it, the better. So I think I talked about this in my last video. Oh, boobs. I think I talked about this last video. But if you play your Radiance early, your Atonements and Shadow Covenant end at the same time. And there's a couple ways you can look at that. You're making a shorter window, and you're also creating a window with a harsher drop-off. So if your Atonements can stick past your Shadow Covenant, it's a little bit better because you can reach for your Atonement spells right out of Shadow Covenant and have them work. So yeah, try and delay your Radiance. You want your Atonements to extend past your Shadow Covenant, and I just think that's ideal in most cases. And I will say, my favorite thing about not playing mind games right now, or anymore, is I can get into Shadow Covenant quicker. So without having one extra cast like that in my window, all you need is a 3 stack on the Harsh Discipline, and you'll be set for success. And speaking of the Harsh Discipline counter, I do just have a weak aura showing a numeric number, which I place right on top of my penance. That just seems most intuitive to me, and it kind of emulates the stat count of the Mind Blast. So I walled since I had the dot. Yeah, whenever you get a dot like that, that is a wall cue. And if anyone's wondering what I mean by wall, that's Desperate Prayer. That's kind of like just the common term for it. Picked up a 5th Torment there, which is really nice. Yeah, those single target dots are no joke on Fortified. These pulls in general are no joke on Fortified. So yeah, that was definitely a wall. Yep, we go into Rapture to save it. I Rapture the front end of the bomb. I refreshed my shield after. And I was a little bit low health, so I started precasting flash heals on myself. One thing when it comes to Atonement healing is it's not as effective if there's large discrepancies in your party's health. The most effective Atonement healing is going to be when everyone is about neutral or about equal. So I was quite lower than everyone else, so Atonement healing wasn't the best choice right there. Flash heal myself. Here's a couple Holy Novas for you Holy Nova fans. So I have dots out. I use penance to keep my dots active. And I do run the Rage Feather. I don't have my nameplates display that on purpose. Ultimately, I don't think it matters if you see where it is. I mean, possibly you could schism those targets, but I have a whole different system for that. But yeah, Rage Feather, Holy Nova for the win. So for this first round, I think I aim for just my Vampiric Embrace, Shadow Covenant, a full Atonement ramp, PI is out, and this could be a debatable decision of mine, but I attack the boss. However, you can always pick up a 5th Torment here by hitting the Elemental. And so notice how my Schism just fell off the boss. That is why I don't attack the Elemental. I'm going to lose value on the Schism. This is non-tyrannical. And even when I don't attack him, he is... Oh, look, Boobs again. Even when I don't attack him, he dies quick enough that I'd rather get full value of my Schism on the boss. So that's just my choice. And you always want to... Yep, there's a 5th Torment. Not the best bait. That might have been on me, but we pick it up. So you always want to scan what buffs you have in these like intermissions, if you will. And we had Pain Sup and Rapture. Yeah, so I go into Rapture on this one, using Grid2 to monitor my absorb values. And if anyone's wondering what that white glow is on my frame, that is indicating Rapture, but I did not mean to have it on. That's just a weak R that I pass out to druids for Innervate. So we had Pain Sup, and that's it. Pain Sup and Shadow Covenant. So our biggest defense right now is making sure I have a proper ramp with Harsh Discipline and Atonements, which I do. Mindbender, Shadow Covenant, Schism, Mind Blast, Dark Reprimand, Star, Refresh Atonements. I did not pick up a 5th Torment that time. So it's like a bonus when you can get that. 4 is your baseline, and whenever you can get more than 4, that's just good. And for a moment like that, I was running low on spells, but it's always a good idea to remember your single shield can act as a major defensive for yourself. So using that buffed shield on yourself is always a sick play as a healer. The way I see it is, if I live, the chances of us all living is better. So I just opt for a little more defense, and someone's got to get it. Tank doesn't need it, and I'm not going to give it to that fucking hunter. He's on my friends list, by the way. I'm just teasing him. I don't know if he watches my channel, Wiggles, but just kidding. Okay, so these are Fortified. Not a joke pull. We need a cooldown. Looks like I'm opening with Rapture. PI is out. By the way, Rapture and PI is a nice combo. Getting in the bubble. And 2 cooldowns per 1 attack. Might not be the most optimized, but I'm just trying to run Shadow Covenant as much as I can. So holding it, I just didn't want to hold it. Single shield on myself.
5.
Always good to roll Penance when it's available. It really helps keep your dots alive. However, if any priest is watching this and hasn't helped with my call to action, please submit a bug report to developers that our talent Revel and Purity does not work consistently. It's supposed to spread 2 dots per penance, and I would say it only works 10% of the time. So I've submitted multiple bugs, and I've even spoken to a GM who said this is an unknown problem. So the only way a developer is going to know this problem is out there is if we report it, and I've reported it more than once. But yeah, if you don't mind, if you play Priest, please report that as a bug report specifically. It takes 1 second. I think it's important that we bring it to developers' attention if we ever hope to have it fixed. So yeah, Revel and Purity do not work. I'm sure you've noticed that. Alright, so we have all cooldowns. These pulls get a little harder. I suit that group. Arcane Torrent those off. Single Dispel those shields off. Open with dots. Dots are our friends. There is finally a well-timed PI on our hunter. So watch him on the DPS meter. And here's a Vampiric Embrace Shadow Covenant. Working a Radiance in the latter half of my window. 2 huge Dark Reprimands, all 4 Torments. Exactly what you want. And for this one is Rapture. Favoring myself and the DPS. That Volcano almost got me in trouble. So I used to play with Demon Hunters a lot, but I don't anymore. But I think he's doing a good job with keeping himself up. Okay, so this is the mini boss of the key. We're going to need 1 cooldown per attack. We have Barrier. And I mess up the barrier, I'll let you know now. So open with dots on the humans. And here's a 100% loss barrier. So I think the better play is, instead of laying it in anticipation of the attack, lay it as a reaction to the attack. So I do have my bigwigs notify me with an audible of that storm attack. I think the better play would be listen for the audible, then drop that barrier. Noted. I honestly just thought it was sooner in the pull. Yeah, but that round, so I guess we don't need cooldowns per storm. All I had were atonements and a penance proc, and that was fine. Mind Blast Penance.
5, 4.
Working a Radiance. We're in execute range, so we're getting 5 torments. And that bitch is dead. So percent is at 100. All we have is non-tyrannical boss. And I don't think we had any problems here. It was a pretty good boss. We have pretty much 4 minutes to go. As a range, do you want to give as much as you can to the dragon? PI's up, Pain Sub's up, Rapture's up. Always scan your buffs. PI on Hunter. And we do have Dispels here. I think you want to get every one. I don't think you want a 2-stack. And then also, similar to casts that I can interrupt, how I have that cast bar come up mid-screen, I do that for the interrupting Cloud Burst as well. And that's because it's something that can interrupt me. So it's important to see that. And with Rapture, you know, I could probably adjust my bigwigs to do a little bit better here. But Rapture anywhere in this fight is pretty much going to get full value. There's that Cloud Burst again.
5, 4.
Cue a Radiance on the back half. So we also have these bombs that go out. And I always like stress when the bombs go out. So for this one I walled and Pain Sup to myself. Yeah, and good thing because that Cloud Burst overlapped. Probably would have been dead otherwise. But with those bombs, like I was saying, they stress me out. But there's, what is that? That's like a 3-second window. I think it's one of those spells where your quick reaction time is going to be the saving grace. So whenever one of those spells goes out, you just have to stop what you're doing and immediately start casting heals on that person. And that's all they need to live, is quick reaction time. Cast like a couple flash heals. You can definitely get 2 flash heals out before they blow up. Obviously it's easier when they're not on you, but even if it is on you, you don't have to move until after they blow up. So even when they go out, you can kind of just stand there for a moment and cast your heals and it's fine. Yeah, so we're in execute range. I'm always refreshing my dot before expiation. There is enough time and I definitely want that value. And boom. So there was a 22 pug. I had no expectation of us timing this, but we did. I would say it was maybe 90 points out of 100 or 85 points out of 100. I think if we were in comms, we could have had better plays. But that, I mean, to time a 22 with a pug, I think is still pretty good. And that was IO for me. I'm just almost at 3K IO, which is pretty sick. I'm pretty happy about that. And then you always want to look at your damage profiles. So the most important ones are the top 3. Mind Blast, Dot, and Torment. Those are always going to be major plays for us. And you can see my Trinket is right below that too. And that's just because we want to touch every mob. And Dark Reprimand is about twice that of Penance. Our Crystalline Reflection is right over 1 million, which is amazing. And that's about it. So I had a much better 22 Ruby a couple weeks ago. But when it finished, I realized I wasn't recording, and that was kind of sad. But Ruby is a little bit harder of a key. I think Fortified is the week to do it. But I'll try and make more videos on this in the future, especially for Tyrannical, which is the major hard week for this place. But thank you guys for watching. Please check out my Patreon. And until next time, Disc out.